Your support matters. With 90% of our viewers yet to subscribe, we need your help to keep creating engaging content. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know where you are watching from. Leave your city in the comments below. I woke up to the dull pounding in my head, the kind that told me I had gone way too far last night. My body felt heavy, tangled in sheets that were not my own. The air smelled different, masculine, musky, and unfamiliar. Panic started rising in my chest before my brain even fully caught up. I blinked against the harsh morning light, my eyes adjusting to a room that was definitely not mine. And then I saw him. No, no, no. My breath hitched as my gaze landed on the broad, sleeping figure beside me. His face was turned away, but I knew that body, the strong shoulders, the faint scar on his arm, the way his chest rose and fell in slow, even breaths. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing this to be some kind of hallucination. Maybe the headache was messing with me. Maybe this was not happening. But when I opened my eyes again, the truth was still there, staring me down like a cruel joke. I was in bed with Ethan, my husband's best friend. Memories from last night rushed in like a flood, flashes of laughter, clinking glasses, the warmth of Ethan's hand on my waist as he steadied me when I nearly tripped, the way his eyes had lingered on mine, something unspoken passing between us. I felt sick. I bolted upright, clutching the sheet to my chest. My heart was racing, my stomach twisting itself into knots. This was not just a mistake, it was a catastrophe. Because my husband, Jake, my loving, trusting, incredible husband, had no idea. Neither did Ethan's fiancée. It had started so innocently. Jake had been the one to suggest we all go out celebrating Ethan's recent promotion. Just a small gathering, me, Jake, Ethan, and his fiancée Laura. I had dressed up, wanting to look good for Jake. Lately, things between us had been distant. Not bad exactly, but not the way they used to be. He worked late, came home exhausted, and when we did have time together, it felt like we were just going through the motions. So last night, I had wanted to remind him that I was still here, that I still wanted him. But as the night went on, I found myself laughing more with Ethan than with my own husband. Jake had been distracted, glued to his phone, caught up in work even when we were supposed to be having fun. Laura had excused herself early, saying she was not feeling well. That left Ethan and me, two people who had known each other for years, who had always been close, but never like this. We had ordered another round, and another. At some point, I had started feeling lighter, warmer, reckless. I remembered Ethan leaning in, his voice low. "You okay?" I had smiled, feeling the alcohol buzzing in my veins. "Better than I have in a long time," I had replied. And then I squeezed my temples, trying to block out the rest, but the memories would not let me. I remembered his hand on mine, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my wrist, the way my breath had hitched when he looked at me like that, as if I was the only thing in the room that mattered. The way I had not stopped him. I had let it happen, and now I had to live with it. Ethan stirred beside me, and I froze. "Please do not wake up. Please do not." "Too late," he groaned, rubbing his face before his eyes met mine. For a second he looked confused. Then realization dawned, his expression shifting from groggy to horrified. "Oh, God!" His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Ethan," I started, but I had no idea what to say. He ran a hand through his hair, sitting up. "Tell me we did not." I could not. His face paled. "No, no, no. This cannot have happened." "I know. I whispered, my voice cracking. We stared at each other, the weight of our mistake pressing down like a heavy stone. A physical force. I do not remember everything, he admitted, his jaw tight. But I remember enough. I nodded slowly. Me too. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then reality hit me like a freight train. Jake. I had to go home. I had to face my husband, look him in the eye, and pretend I had not just done the worst thing imaginable. Panic clawed at my chest. I needed to get out of here before I made this any worse. I have to go, I said, scrambling for my clothes. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my dress off the floor, slipping it on with fumbling fingers. Ethan stood, looking just as wrecked as I felt. We need to talk about this. I shook my head urgently. Not now. I cannot. He reached for me, his touch burning through my panic. We cannot just pretend it did not happen. My eyes met his, and something twisted painfully in my chest. Guilt, regret, and something else I could not name. I do not have a choice. Before he could say anything else, I turned and fled. By the time I reached my car, my hands were still trembling. I forced myself to breathe, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. What had I done? How could I ever look Jake in the eyes again? I swallowed back the nausea rising in my throat. I had to bury this. It was a one-time mistake. It would never happen again. And no one, absolutely no one, could ever know. With that final, desperate thought, I started the car and drove home, unaware that the truth had a way of surfacing when you least expected it. The drive home felt endless, every second stretching into eternity. My heart pounded in my chest as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. The weight of last night pressed down on me, suffocating. I could not escape it, not the flashes of memory, not the scent of Ethan still lingering on my skin, not the overwhelming guilt clawing at my insides. Jake was home. I had checked my phone on the way, my stomach twisting at the text he had sent. Jake. Hey, are you okay? Did not hear you come in last night. Thought you were staying with Laura. I squeezed my eyes shut for a brief moment before pulling into our driveway. My house, our house, looked the same as it always did. But for the first time, it felt foreign, as if I did not belong here anymore. I stepped out of the car, inhaling deeply, trying to steady myself. I had to act normal. I had to bury last night so deep that even I could forget it had happened. But as soon as I stepped inside, Jake was there, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. His blue eyes studied me with quiet curiosity. Hey, he said, his voice even. Rough night? I forced a smile, setting my purse down on the table. Yeah. Laura was not feeling great, so I stayed a little longer with Ethan. We had a few too many drinks. The lie slipped out too easily. Jake's brow furrowed slightly. You should have called. I was up for a while. Guilt twisted like a knife in my chest. I know. I am sorry, I said quickly. My phone was on silent, and I crashed on the couch at their place. I avoided his gaze, busying myself by pouring a glass of water. My hands were still shaking. I hoped he would not notice. Jake studied me for a moment, then let out a small chuckle. Well, you look like you had a good time. If only he knew. I forced a laugh. Yeah, remind me never to drink that much again. He pushed off the counter, stepping toward me. When he wrapped his arms around me, I froze. His embrace was warm, familiar, comforting. I did not deserve it. I missed you last night, he murmured against my hair. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard and pulled away, plastering on a weak smile. Missed you too, but I need a shower. I feel gross. Before he could respond, I hurried upstairs, locking the bathroom door behind me. As soon as I turned on the water, I collapsed against the sink, gripping the edge with both hands. My reflection stared back at me, disheveled, tired, and haunted. I had to fix this. I had to be the wife Jake deserved. After my shower, I went about my day as if nothing had happened. I made breakfast, laughed at Jake's jokes, pretended everything was fine. But then my phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Ethan, we need to talk. Panic flared in my chest. No, we did not. We needed to forget. Quickly, I typed a response. Me. There is nothing to talk about. It was a mistake. We move on. The three dots appeared, then disappeared. Seconds later, another message came through. Ethan, I do not think I can just move on. My hands trembled as I stared at the words. This was not supposed to happen. We were supposed to pretend it never happened, not drag it out. Before I could respond, another message arrived. Ethan, I remember more than I thought I did. A chill ran down my spine. I did not respond. I could not. Instead, I deleted the conversation, set my phone down, and forced myself to breathe. This would go away. It had to. The next few days were torture. Ethan and I avoided each other like the plague. Whenever we were in the same room, neither of us could meet the other's eyes. But avoidance was not enough, because Jake noticed. At first, it was little things. You and Ethan are not talking much, he remarked one evening as we sat on the couch. I forced a shrug. Just busy. Jake studied me for a moment. He called me today, asked how you were. I stiffened. Oh, yeah, Jake said, frowning slightly. He said you seemed off. Asked if everything was okay. My stomach dropped. What was Ethan doing? I am fine, I said quickly. Like I said, just busy with work. Jake did not look convinced. If there is something wrong, you would tell me, right? The guilt was unbearable. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. Of course. Another lie. But the real breaking point came a week later. I was at the grocery store when I felt someone step up beside me, Ethan. I tensed, gripping the shopping cart. What are you doing? I whispered. We need to talk, he said, his voice low but firm. I glanced around, paranoid that someone might see us. Not here. He nodded toward the back of the store, where it was less crowded. Reluctantly, I followed. The moment we were out of earshot, Ethan turned to face me, looking tense. I tried to let it go. I really did. But I cannot just pretend nothing happened. I inhaled sharply. We have to, for both our sakes. He shook his head. It is not that simple. I clenched my jaw. It has to be. I love Jake. Ethan's expression darkened. Do you? I froze. What? He took a step closer. Because if you did, it would not have happened. My breath caught in my throat. This was spiraling out of control. Ethan, please, I whispered. This has to stay between us. For a long moment, he just stared at me, as if searching for something in my expression. Then he exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. I do not know if I can do that. Panic surged through me. You have to. Before he could say anything else, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Jake. A shiver ran down my spine as I hesitated before answering. Hey, I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. Jake's voice was tight. Where are you? I frowned. Grocery store. Why? Silence, then. I just got a call from Laura. My blood ran cold. She said Ethan has been acting weird, and she thinks it has something to do with you. My stomach dropped. Jake's voice was calm, but I could hear the edge to it. Is there something you need to tell me? My heart pounded violently against my ribs. This was it, the moment I had been dreading. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone like it was the only thing keeping me upright. What do I say? What do I do? Jake's words echoed in my mind, sending a cold shiver down my spine. Is there something you need to tell me? I felt Ethan's presence beside me, his tense breathing only making my anxiety worse. My grip on the phone tightened as I forced myself to stay calm. Calm. I could not panic, not now. I do not know what Laura is talking about, I said, keeping my voice steady. Ethan and I have not really talked since that night at their place. Maybe she just noticed he has been distant. Jake was silent on the other end of the line. I could picture him, brows furrowed, jaw clenched, trying to piece things together. Finally, he sighed. I do not know. It just feels weird. Maybe I am overthinking it. Relief flooded through me. You are? I said quickly, trying to inject a bit of lightness into my tone. I promise everything is fine. All right, Jake murmured. I will see you when you get home. I hung up and exhaled shakily, my heart still hammering. Ethan was watching closely. That was close, he muttered. I turned to him, my stomach twisting. This cannot happen again. Whatever you are feeling, whatever you are thinking, we have to let it go. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his face. You think I do not know that? Then act like it, I snapped, keeping my voice low. Because if Jake finds out, everything falls apart. Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. I let out a shaky breath and forced myself to finish shopping, even though my mind was spinning. This was dangerous, too dangerous, and I was not sure if I could keep it together much longer. That night, Jake was quieter than usual. We ate dinner in near silence, the only sound coming from the clinking of silverware. I could feel his eyes on me every now and then, studying me, searching for something. It made my skin crawl. I tried to act normal, talking about work, asking about his day, but he barely responded. Finally, as I was loading the dishwasher, he spoke. Are you sure everything is okay? My hands froze on the plate I was holding. I forced a small laugh, glancing at him over my shoulder. Why would it not be? Jake leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. I do not know. You just seem off, and Ethan is acting strange too. Panic bubbled up inside me, but I kept my expression neutral. Maybe Laura and Ethan are going through something. You know how relationships are. Jake studied me for a long moment. Yeah, I do. There was something in his tone that made my stomach twist. I forced myself to finish loading the dishwasher, keeping my movements casual. I think I am just tired. I will head to bed early. Jake did not argue, but I could tell he was not convinced, and that terrified me. The next few days were unbearable. Jake was not acting like himself. He was watching me more closely, asking subtle questions that made my pulse race. And then it happened. I came home from work one evening, exhausted and mentally drained, only to find Jake sitting in the living room, his laptop open on the coffee table. The second I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Hey, I greeted cautiously, setting my purse down. What is up? Jake did not answer right away. He just stared at me. Then he turned the laptop around. My breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of me and Ethan outside the grocery store, talking too closely. Laura sent me this, Jake said quietly. She was worried. Said Ethan has been distracted lately, and then she saw you too. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Stay calm. Think. Jake, I started, forcing a laugh. It is not what it looks like. Ethan just wanted to talk about Laura. He has been stressed, and do not lie to me. Jake cut in sharply. I know you, and I know when you are hiding something. My throat tightened. I am not hiding anything. He clenched his jaw. Then tell me the truth right now. My heart pounded violently. This was it, the moment everything could fall apart. I had two choices: keep lying and risk everything getting worse, or confess and lose.